Hey everybody, just doing a quick closeout here on the construction of my Bashan Brozz 250 Enduro, and it came in that box and it is no longer in there. It is now built and just passed its first test ride. Just thought I'd make a quick run around and zoom in on a few places just to kind of show you what nuts and bolts I used and things like that. There are no instructions with this machine when it comes, so you're a little bit up to your own ingenuity to figure out what goes where. I used these bolts, these hex bolts, to put on the foot pegs for the rear passenger. Up here on the luggage rack, if yours comes equipped with one, again, the hex rounded off bolts work nicely there. Getting the nut on the back was a little bit hard on those, but not too bad. The back end of those, I don't know if you can see it, I just used a regular hex nut, I think, that came with it. I can't get the camera on it here, but anyway, it's just a hex nut up underneath there. There it is. A couple of those to hold that on. Let's see, I did modify the monoshock just a little bit. I used the bolt that came with it, but then I also put a couple of additional washers, lock washer type thing on there, and used some anti-seize on it, or not anti-seize, the other one, Loctite, so to make sure that didn't come loose. Okay, these turn signals you'll put on, they're very simple. They just have a nut on the back. You can see the one on this side. Those go on no problem. Just make sure you kind of hold them straight while you're assembling them. The other side, foot peg, same way. There's the kickstand, and the spring was no problem as long as you put up, when you're putting this on, I used just a piece of round bar, about 3/8 inch, that I had to pry it down onto here and pop it on. And it, just takes a little torque to get it on there, but it was no worries to get that on. And again, I think I might have put an extra lock washer on the back of that. I don't know if you can see it, but I put an extra lock washer on that. The battery, when it comes, you're going to have your battery without any acid in it. They do supply a bottle of acid, so you just need to take this loose and then carefully start pulling this panel away at the front and start pulling it back this way, and then there's another point right in there that it hooks into the frame, and then another little slide in piece right there. So just be really careful when you take that off that you don't break it. The plastic on these is not what I'd call high quality. It's very pretty, but it's kind of cheap, so be real careful getting those apart. Once you get in here, your battery sits right in there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but right there's the battery. And to actually access it, you have to take the two bolts loose. There's one, I don't know if you can see it where I'm pointing here, probably not. There's a bolt, I can't tell where I'm pointing, but it's up in this area, and that's the top one. The bottom one is more down over in here. Just take those two loose. There's a bunch of wires in front of it. It looks like it would be hard to get out, but it's not. So just do that real careful when you come to that point, to take the battery and the battery can that holds it all out in one piece. That way you can get the battery lifted up and out of there and fill it with your fluid. I threw mine on the battery charger. It probably took 30 minutes to bring it up to 100%. So that's about all there. Your foot feed, your shifter is right here. And I think I probably used the wrong bolt on that. I may take it off and redo it here eventually, but the bolt there is just one bolt that holds that on. Let's see. Already got my bell on there, my anti-crash emergency device. Let's see, what else? Up in here, routing the cables and stuff takes a little time. You just work your way through it slowly. There's a grommet that goes in here. It's already on this cable, but you'll adjust it up. Here at the top of the forks, you'll see where there's a clip there for the tube, and then over in here there's a clip on this white piece that slides right into here, and that's what holds the top of this from flopping around. The bottom, there's just 2 bolts here that hold the bottom piece in. Here's a close-up of the brake assembly. I had to fiddle around with the bleeder here to get the brake to work. It took a while, and I had to add some fluid and squeeze the brake several times to get it to actually come in. I'm sorry I'm having trouble with the focus here on this camera, but this gives you a better idea kind of how it's mounted. It just goes, the caliper just slides right over the disc there, and you just put it on and then have to get it bled out until it starts working. So I hope that helps a little bit. As pointed out in another video, this part of the fender is a little bit tricky here, and I'm working upside down. I don't know what you can see. There's the bracket that holds it on, and that just comes up here and just sits, and up in here just holds it's not attached to anything, it's just a free mount for the fender. But there's the bottom bracket and how it goes on, and then it goes up through this piece. Can you see it? I don't know. Here, let me try this. There we go. That's better. Get the angle on it. Okay, so there's the bracket, the top bracket. Now when this thing comes to you, these 2 bolts already there's a little bracket above this, and they have a bolt in it. You have to pull that bolt off, those 2 bolts out, and then put the long bolts in that come up from underneath and go all the way up through. Okay, and then on the back there's another one. Okay, you can see the bottom of that one there, and then the 2 screws that come up from underneath and hold the whole assembly together. It's a little bit tricky, but not too hard. It just takes a while, a little fiddling. Okay, the front pod assembly was a little bit tricky to get these bolts to line up. I had to use like a screwdriver to poke around in there and get them lined up, and then quickly put the bolt in along with some anti-seize. You have to fiddle with it a little bit, and there's a big bundle of wires behind it that you'll have to fit in. But it's not bad to get it in there, really. What else to tell you? Not too much else there. There's the other side of those 2 brackets, 2 bolts. Wasn't too much over here. This side axis is the air cleaner. I still haven't figured out how to get the seat off. I'm sure I will one of these days, but I haven't yet. This gas cap is covered with some blue colored plastic. It is really hard to get off. I spent quite a while fiddling with it, and I still have kind of a glue residue on here. I'll clean that up later. But this assembly, you make sure you put this on the handlebar loosely in the order it is here before. There, I shut off the autofocus. Put this on loosely before you tighten everything up, but it goes on in this order. So it's your brake cylinder and handle, then your stop button, or your hazard. I mean, this thing doesn't have a emergency stop on it. And then lastly, your hand grip goes on, your throttle, and then you'll adjust those and set them up later, you know. This part all went together pretty straightforward. I used the wrong bolts in the bottom of the ignition. There's an ignition cylinder down there, and I actually I thought it came with some nice bolts, and I thought, why do you use these nice bolts? And so I had some in the shop I used, but they're the ones that should have went in there. Anyway, it's all together, and I've taken it for its first quick test ride just around the block. Gonna go get up here pretty quick and go put some gas in it uptown, some non-ethanol. All I had in the shop was ethanol fuel, so just put in a gallon or two. I also put in a little Marvel mystery oil. I'm not a salesman for them, but it's a good product. I've used it in every engine of all kinds, from diesel semi-trucks, my airplane. I put it in my airplane. I put it in all my ATVs, my personal cars. It's just a good product to help. If you've never heard of it, there's the half gallon I have left. I highly recommend this stuff. You can run it in with your gas and with your oil, but it's a good way when you're breaking in an engine, I think, to put in a little bit of that. And it's a good thing later as well. So anyway, I can't think of much else to tell you. I just wanted to point out a few of the kind of harder points of putting it together. Total assembly time for me was probably 10, 11 hours, right in there, maybe as many as 12, I suppose. But I'm slow and I'm old and I take my time, and I don't get in a rush. And I didn't have a motorcycle jack. I used a floor jack from Harbor Freight with a board on it to lift this thing up once I got it, ready to lift from where it's assembled to the crate. But all in all, the build was easy. Love the bike so far. Everything works. When I started it up and ran it, everything worked properly. And I'm impressed. And it's really quiet too. As it comes stock with the exhaust, it's very quiet. So good enough for me. Gonna go ride on the back of the motorhome and go have some fun with it. So anyway, if you bought one or thinking about buying one, it's definitely a doable assembly project if you're just a little bit handy with a wrench. I mean, you seriously need some mechanical ability, but not a lot, and it doesn't take any fancy tools, just basic stuff. Few sockets, few wrenches, a few screwdrivers, hex wrenches, and you're good to go. So, all right, guys, I'm out of here. Enjoy.